Welcome to the RIP M.D. interview and discussion about the new graphic novel from Lincoln Butterfield and Fantagraphics, RIP M.D. My name is Mitch Schauer. I'm the creator, writer, and penciler of the book, and I'm here with two wonderful people, Mike Vosburg, who inked the book, and Mike Lessa, who colored and lettered. Welcome, gentlemen. The inspiration behind RIP M.D. was my love of monsters. Growing up and watching the classic horror films, I realized that the monsters were sympathetic characters and really not that terrifying, and I've always wanted to bring that to fruition, so I did that with a little boy who believes in monsters and actually gets to meet one for the first time. Well, the process of creating the graphic novel started with an outline. I wrote about a 15-page outline, broke it into 4 acts, because I treated the graphic novel as like it was 4 issues of a comic book. So I tried to break the story out into 20 pages per issue, knowing that it was going to be an 80-page book. And based on that outline, then I began penciling. Once I finished the penciling, or as I was finishing the penciled pages, I was handing them over to Mike Lessa, and he was coordinating with Mr. Vosburg, who was going to do the finishes on the pages. Mr. Mike?
And for me, it was just a matter of grabbing the pages and going, oh my God, because they were very nice. Unfortunately, I don't know where Mitch had got his paper from, but every time I put a pen line down on it, it just went. So I did have to buy some new paper for Mitch to work on before I could actually ink the stuff. But inking the drawings was just a joy. I mean, there's so much personality in them. They're very tight. And they're beautiful little drawings. So I had a great time.
And then as Mr. Vosburg finished inking those pages, they would come back to Mr. Lessa.
Yeah. So Mike would bring the inked pages back to me. Inked page, where we would scan them, and Justin Yamaguchi and I would paste them in the computer. We break them down into as many different elements as we needed. We take out the backgrounds. Painted our own backgrounds and put, you'll see later, put several different layers in there depending on what the painting needed, or that particular page needed.
The wonderful thing about the coloring also that Mike brought to it was an illustrative look to it. It didn't have that flat comic book feel in the color. He basically kind of rendered out every panel, so it looks like an illustration every time you look at each panel.
And my favorite was when I showed the book to my assistant after it came out. He's looking at the pages where he had to carefully rule in all these bricks in the background, and he's going, my work is not there anymore.
I used as many things like bricks and any live textures, wood, grass. I used as much live elements as we possibly could to try and get the book that feeling that it was more of a movie than a flat comic book. Well, I approached each panel as if it were a live action still. So I wanted to make sure that we had the proper depth of field. If we don't have a panel like, since this one's in front of us, a panel like this, if you can get a close look at that, there's a lot of depth there. I mean, the graveyard goes back on and into the fog as far as it can, so we needed to make sure that it portrayed that. And I took Mike's inks and broke them into several planes, making the fronts darker and more contrasty, and everything else just kind of fade into the background as stuff went away. So we tried to get as much of live action lighting and feel into the backgrounds as we possibly could.
Is that why you were wearing the director's viewfinder all?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
My favorite part of working on it was just honestly the technical parts, figuring out exactly how I was going to do it. But once we got the artwork and breaking it down and turning the line work into color work and just figuring out, mechanically how it all would work and how it all would look great, and Mitch would approve it.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of, during making the book, we never really had a moment where we had to stop and rethink and go back. It just seemed to kind of flow very well, very easily.
Yeah, and a big part of that is Mitch and I have known each other a long time and worked together a long time, and Mike and I worked together quite a while ago, but we worked together very closely for a few months on a couple of projects, and it was really easy working with everybody. There wasn't nobody was yelling and screaming at each other or throwing rocks.
No.
It all just flowed.
In my Ripley plimps, I'm taller, I'm older, but there are some aspects of Ripley that
He has better hair.
he has better hair,
That's true.
and he has more hair. There's aspects of it, the way he lives with his family, the way they get along, with the way he gets along with his parents and family and friends. That's very much me. Well, my favorite comic book growing up was the Fantastic Four when Jack Kirby was drawing it, Joe Sinnott was inking it. I saw it on the shelf. I thought, boy, this looks different. And I'm sorry I wasn't really a DC fan, because the Fantastic Four, the Marvel books kind of left off the stands. So I started buying Fantastic Four, and that led to me collecting Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella and all those classic black and white slicks that are really well drawn and well written. So Fantastic Four is the first one.
My favorite comic growing up was Joe Kubert's Hawkman. That was the first time I saw a comic book that I was like, that's what I want to do. And I never read Marvel comics. They had little interest for me.
That's why we don't get along.
That's true. The other great thing was Al Williamson did a Flash Gordon about the same time.
Ooh.
And I like comics they're very pretty with the artwork.
Growing up, I was a big Batman fan, always was. And actually, I was like the opposite of Mitch. I was a big DC everything fan. I bought probably every title that they did. I think the Green Lantern books and all the Batman books were my favorites. And it honestly didn't matter who drew them. I just liked the characters.
But you like Jim Aparo.
I loved Jim Aparo when he showed up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he became my favorite for a long time on everything he did. On Batman, on Phantom Stranger, and Aquaman.
Well, I'm outnumbered, so I guess I'm wrong.
You're wrong. Well, the first event that we had at Borders was, signing event that we had at Borders was great, because there were 40 or 50 people there. And Mitch got to do a question and answer thing, and we got to talk about the book. And the person who put on the event was doing a little Halloween tribute thing, so
Which was your niece.
which was my niece.
Yes.
So we got to do a little more than just sign. And then when everybody came up, everybody was so ecstatic. There were people that were buying a lot of copies at the same time, because they were buying it for their friends and their family, and so we'd be handed a stack. It's like,
And you really have to remember that the creative process is, even when we're working in collaboration, it's basically a lonely process. You get the stuff, you take it home, you work on it, and you're trying to do your best, and you're thinking, oh, I hope this is good. So when it comes out and you suddenly are greeted by the public and everyone is very positive about the work, that's really nice to hear. I mean, you got to remember, you're talking to the man who once got a review of possibly the worst comic ever published. So working on RIP, that's a step up for me.